In our previous video, we looked at the method. Today, we're going to explore how to actually use this knowledge to reinterpret chords to help our top line playing, find modal chords instantly, and voice lead chord progressions in real time. Here is a C major 7th chord. By using my newly acquired knowledge of interval mapping, I can now respell this chord by flipping it over its 3rd, 5th, and 7th. Let's flip it over its major 3rd together. The root is a major 3rd below the major 3rd, so a minor 6th above. The perfect 5th is a minor 3rd above the major 3rd, and the major 7th is a perfect 5th above the major 3rd. We can do this with each other chord member, coming up with these respellings, all for that same C major 7th chord. So now if I come across C major 7 harmony, I can think in terms of E Phrygian, E Aeolian, and the minor 7th arpeggio belonging to those modes, E minor 7, as these all correspond to an E minor chord with a flattened 6th. If we think in terms of G6 sus4, we can think in terms of G Mixolydian, G Ionian, and the dominant and major 7th arpeggios corresponding to each. When we think this way, we're often highlighting interesting colour tones and not just the standard chord notes of C major 7. In the last video, we touched on how interval mapping can help us find modal chords instantly. Now we're going to take a proper look at this. If we're fluent in how our major scale intervals relate to each other, then this becomes a very easy process, as each interval in our major scale corresponds directly to each modal family. So if we want to find the 4 chord in Dorian, we simply have to ask ourselves what interval corresponds to the mode in question, in this case the major 2nd, and then what a 4th up from this interval would be. A 4th above the 2nd is the 5th, so our answer is a chord that corresponds to the Mixolydian mode of the major scale, so will be of dominant quality. So, what sort of 4? Sharp 4? Any alterations? Because we know our major scale intervals, we know that the 5 chord from the major scale is a perfect 4th up from the 2 chord, so the chord will be a dominant 7th sonority built off the perfect 4th. So our answer is 4-7. To find our chord, we don't actually need to worry about the quality of any intervals, major, minor, etc., as regardless of the quality of any of these intervals, the 4th above the 2nd is always the 5th, so finding our chord couldn't be easier. Once we've found our chord, in this case the 5 chord of our major scale, we then simply measure the musical distance between the starting point, in this case the major 2nd, and the perfect 5th from our major scale. Let's try another, just to consolidate. So, what is the 5 chord in Phrygian? Phrygian corresponds to the 3rd of our major scale, so without worrying about quality, we simply ask ourselves, what is a 5th above the 3rd? And the answer is the 7th. So our chord is going to be half diminished in quality as it's derived from the Locrian mode, and because our intervals come from the major scale, we're dealing with a major 7th and a major 3rd. So our answer is a half diminished chord built off the perfect 5th. So 5, half diminished 7 is our answer. Chord progressions often move by descending perfect 5ths and by major and minor 2nds and 3rds. Because we've already mapped out these interval relationships within the major and minor scales, we can now find the smoothest voice leading options in our chord progressions. Here's how. When we move from our 5 chord to our 1 chord, we're moving down a perfect 5th, which is the same as moving up a perfect 4th. In order to find our best options for smooth voice leading, we can view the notes of our 5 chord from the perspective of the perfect 4th interval, as this is the root of our 1 chord. The root is a perfect 5th above the perfect 4th, the major 3rd is a major 7th above the perfect 4th, the perfect 5th is a major 2nd above the perfect 4th, and the minor 7th is a perfect 4th above the perfect 4th. We can hold our root over as the perfect 5th of the 1 chord. The major 3rd can either be held over as the major 7th or move up by semitone to the root of the 1 chord. The perfect fifth can either move down to the root or up to the major third of the one chord, and the minor seventh can move down half a step to the major third of the one chord. Where these voices end up is of course your choice, but through learning interval mapping, we now know which chord members are the closest ones to move to.